I watch over this city and all who inhabit it, protecting them from evil creatures of chaos. It just so happens I've tracked such a creature to this bridge. Looks like he's right on time.
Hey! Your world's demise is now! Let us commence combat!
Well, looks like I'm gonna have to sock you with a right hook.
Fool! If you sock at me with the right hook, then I'll counter it with the left, and then I'll hit you with the roundhouse kick with my left leg.
Idiot! If you throw that out, I'm just gonna block with my right leg and put you in a chokehold.
Then I'll counter with my neck, because aliens have really strong necks. And then I don't even know where we can go from there because you're so evil and weak. Enough! This is going nowhere! How about this? I have you review my favorite game that I got from Blockbuster 140 light years away. Hybrid Heaven.
Whoa, really?
Can't wait to watch your video! Look at this thing I found. So cute.
You know, as someone who's owned both the N64 and PS1 as a child, I sure missed out on a crap ton of games. I mean, half the games we cover on this channel are just games I've always wanted to try, so naturally, I knew it was only a matter of time before I picked up the fabled Hybrid Heaven. I'm just kidding. I've never heard of this game until it was recommended to me. Released August 31st, 1999 on the N64, Hybrid Heaven is an action platformer. Kinda. Hybrid Heaven is an RPG. Sorta. Hybrid Heaven is a 3D fighter? What best describes Hybrid Heaven? Well, there's only one way to find out. Go! With a 3-year development cycle created by Konami Computer Entertainment Osaka as an answer to Konami Computer Entertainment Japan's Metal Gear Solid, Hybrid Heaven was born from the mind of Yasuo Daikai, who sought to create an action-packed game with a cinematic story that would keep players engaged in its plot. And you know what? He achieved this. The only word I can think of when describing this game's story is crazy. I mean, just look at the Hybrid Heaven North American commercial.
Just got more dangerous. But for who?
When?
Hybrid Heaven, tough as hell. From Konami.
They don't make them like they used to, do they? I don't know what's crazier, this man screaming in this old woman's face or grandma over here inciting some sort of ancient ritual.
I was just kidding!
Hybrid Heaven takes place in the fantastical land of New York City. And in the first cutscene, you are shown this slow pan of the city itself before transitioning into a spiraling double helix shaft and title screen. You can absolutely just tell by the title screen alone that they were gunning for this MGS vibe, and I am so here for it. We start a new file and the player is thrown into the convoluted storyline that is Hybrid Heaven. This game's story is one of political intrigue, body snatchers, but most importantly, naked men watching cartoons. Currently, there is a peace treaty being signed between Russia and the United States to disarm all nuclear weapons. And on December 24th, both the US and Russia will agree to disarm and the world will fall into an era of peace. However, there are more sinister parties at play here. You see, our mysterious nudist is named Johnny. We know this because his girlfriend Holly left us a voice message saying his name was Johnny.
Johnny?
Johnny gets a knock on his door and is greeted by the man who is standing behind the president on the TV. This man divulges the plan to assassinate the president and replace him with a substitute, and we apparently are going to be spearheading that project. This scene could have been dark and moody if it weren't for the fact that the man at the door couldn't get his eyes off Johnny's junk. Like, you're not even trying to hide it.
Ooh.
The man tells Johnny to find another man named Diaz, which brings us to the underground train station where we run into Diaz. And surprisingly, Holly, Johnny's girlfriend, of which he doesn't seem to recognize. But as a picture of mental stability, Diaz listens to some voices in his head that tell him to shoot Johnny and...
That man
Why did you shoot?
Not now. There's something wrong with Mr. Diaz. We've got to get him below ground.
There's a witness.
The evidence is gone. There's no trace left.
So I guess Diaz is now the main character and is taken away by the two men in black who were accompanying us. Holly remains unfazed. As the men in black take Diaz to an underground complex, he decides to fight his captors before falling off the elevator. Luckily, a wizard was nearby and saved him by casting Stopis Fallis. Endgame start. The entire beginning sequence really sets up the narrative for Hybrid Heaven. You are made to believe Johnny was the main character, but then they implement a little plot twist where he dies and now you're Diaz. This also brings about a ton of questions that instantly make you want to keep playing. Why did Johnny ignore Holly? Who are the men in black? Who was speaking in Diaz's mind? All in due course, my friend. Going over the controls, movement is pretty responsive. Cameras can get a bit wonky, but nothing bad enough to affect gameplay. The A button is the action button, but also the jump button. The B button toggles the map. The right bumper is to aim, and while aiming, the A button is to shoot. And the Z button... Oh yeah, guys. We're in for a treat. As mentioned previously, Hybrid Heaven does in fact blend 3 different genres together. You've got that staple, puzzle-solving running around of an action platformer like Metal Gear Solid or Tomb Raider, the customization of an RPG system, and Hybrid Heaven's very own battle system, which effectively makes it its own 3D fighter. The first area in the game is the bioweapon storage facility. It is here that Diaz receives a code key. A card that's code can be updated to unlock new doors. This is a major mechanic in Hybrid Heaven, as new areas require you to find the key reader, which allows you to update your card and progress further into the level. It's also here we grab our first item from a chest, the Life Charger S. Hybrid Heaven has an impressive amount of items that you can find scattered about the many areas of this game. They range from simple healing pots like our Life Charger here, to consumable weapons like the Flame Shot or the Ion Shot. Most of the curatives never seem to run out, so as long as you don't abuse them, you should have plenty of utility items at your disposal like offensive, defensive, and speed boosters. The thing I appreciate about the beginning area itself is it's almost like a gauntlet teaching the player how to play. We are taught to jump, climb, look behind objects, and find panels that need to be shot to lower force fields of the same color. And most importantly, all robots must die. In the platforming segments, we use the diffuser to blow up robots. It has infinite ammo, auto aims provided that you're in range of the target, but never gets an upgrade, which is kind of a bummer summer if you ask me, but I love the noise it makes. We reach the end of the area and we find this strange device that upon messing around with sets the facility on high alert.
Someone's just opened the cell storing the bioweapons.
Now why would somebody go and do that? So stupid. Why, is that bad? Losing Jumpsuit Terry, we are transitioned into our first combat encounter. If I could describe combat in Hybrid Heaven, I'd say that it is something similar to Tekken in a sense that it's 3D and you use 4 limbs to fight as well as use combos to do damage to your enemy. However, the difference here is combat is take turn and nowhere is near as in depth as Tekken. The battle interface is pretty straightforward. Health, power, stock power, and stamina. Stamina goes down as you hit and get hit, and the lower it is, the slower your power generates, which is what is used to make attacks. Battle starts when an enemy approaches you or you approach an enemy. And when this happens, the scene seamlessly changes and the words fight flashes on the screen and you initiate combat. Then what I call the shuffling phase begins. You see, in Hybrid Heaven, you can't button mash. You need to wait for your power bar to at least regenerate partially before you're able to perform an attack or use an item. Your power bar regenerates slower if you're moving away from an enemy, but faster if you're moving towards them. So typically when you start combat, you shuffle back and forth trying to avoid the enemy from closing in on you, causing this almost cinematic build-up to the fight. Then once you have enough power, you move in and you can choose the action you wish to do. And let me tell you, buddy, there are choices. You can access items you have on hand, healing yourself with curatives, boosting your speed, defense, or attack, or draining the enemy's speed, defense, cancer attack. You can also whip out guns and do some blasting, but I'd be cautious as these do a lot of damage but are pretty scarce and best saved for only the toughest of fights. On the defensive, when an enemy approaches you, you can either guard against the incoming attack, taking a hit while reducing damage, sidestepping to avoid the attack entirely, which is best used while already mid-sidestep during your shuffling phase, or countering, which blocks, then as implied, counterattacks. These 3 defensive maneuvers are never guaranteed, and you can fail them depending on what moves are used in your current position / stamina. And when an enemy grabs you, you can either take the fall, effectively the same as guarding, escape the throw, which has never worked for me, or reverse the throw, which has also never worked for me. On the offensive, you are able to choose whether you wish to use a punch or a kick. Then from there, you make more choices like, do I attack with a low, medium, or high? Which arm or leg do I use?
Do I go with Coke or Pepsi? I think we both know the answer to this age-old riddle.
It's like a metaphor for real fights. You are actively thinking about what you're gonna do next, managing your power and stamina as to not exhaust yourself. I think this comes across in Hybrid Heaven's combat so well. Konami really took the time and effort to make these fights feel real. One criticism I have about combat is later in the game, fights start taking anywhere between 5 and 15 minutes due to enemies having so much health and healing capabilities. In the later chapters, I ended up trying to avoid combat as it became tedious having to back up, wait for your power to charge, and attack over and over and over again. Now, this was probably done because as you progress, you unlock more stock power bars, which allow for additional moves that can be used during combat. This also unlocks the ability to edit strings of moves mid-battle and bank them for huge combos that range from 2 to 4 hits, thus doing more damage to the enemy. I feel like this is a running theme in games, adding more health to enemies to compensate for players getting better, but not really adding much to combat. If I were to add anything to the combat, it would be action commands. Like if you choose to throw at a left kick, maybe hit A at the exact right time to deal out 1.5 times the damage. Or during throws, you might have to click a specific sequence of buttons to make sure the throw comes out right. Or on the flip side, if you're getting thrown, you might have to click a specific sequence of buttons to not take as much damage or to even break the throw. Anything to add an interactive experience to the fights or speed up the fights and reward players for being good at the game. Now, every battle you partake in not only levels your character's stats, but also levels the limbs used in combat. I went the black leg Sanji route and only used me legs, meaning I completely ignored punches and throws. This is basically Hybrid Heaven's answer to the age-old "what build are you going for" segment of any RPG. Each player can customize their build to their playstyle. Want to be a wrestler? Throw a bunch. Want to be the next Steve Fox? Keep jabbing. But be warned, some enemies are stronger against specific limb types, and consequently, if you spam the same limb too much, it will break and temporarily be out of commission, losing access to any moves or combos that use said limb. Now on the flip side, the more the limb gets hit, the stronger it becomes defensively. What's even cooler about this is in the multiplayer mode, you and a friend can take your save files and custom characters and insert memory packs into 2 separate controllers and fight each other. Unfortunately, I couldn't test out any multiplayer aspects of this game since I don't have friends. Upon finishing the battle, you are shown a results screen letting you know things like how many attacks you had on each other, your hit rate, and your rank, none of which matter. Then past this, if you leveled up, it will show your stat increases, any defensive or offensive limb level ups, as well as any moves that you may have learned during a fight that again lean into those RPG aspects. I just want to note that collecting moves is such a great way to incentivize combat and even further incentivize exploration, as the more you explore, the more items and moves you get. So with a ton of bioweapons released and everyone mad at us, the game opens up and you are introduced to a bigger helping of the action platforming segments. As you explore the areas of Hybrid Heaven, you will come across many puzzles, platforms, and robots. The robots in particular pose little threat to you as you can just kind of shoot them from a distance with your diffuser, but they do serve as environmental hazards, adding some challenge to exploration segments. Trying to jump this gap? Well, there's 2 robots below you and 2 above, and if you don't take them out, you'll just get shot and fall. The platforming segments are an amazing way to break up the monotony of just running through halls and fighting things. Sometimes, rarely, you need to use stealth. Sometimes you gotta climb boxes. And other times you just need to run away. For example, I shimmy across this gap and then boom, items. Exploration is rewarded to those who dare to be bold. And I and such. Now, puzzles on the other hand, well, they're pretty mundane. They usually consist of finding a glowing switch and shooting it to get rid of the force field blocking your way. Or if we're getting real spicy, we get to shoot a locked door in a room filled with enemies. Konami could have done better in the action platforming segments by simply making puzzles a little bit more in depth and making environments a little more interesting. I'll talk locations a little later in the video, but for now, let's get back to the story. We make our way through the final areas of the bioweapon storage facility, fighting, getting key codes, and being blown up by these cute little floor slugs. It is here in the last room where we meet Procyon. Procyon is the first boss, and when you enter his room, he is enveloped by these blazing blue flames emanating pure raw power through his very being. Hell yes! Honestly, there's nothing really special about this fight. Procyon feels like every other enemy, and while he did nail the intro, he did not stick the landing. But I will say, this is the first time you were introduced to the boss theme, and my god is it epic. We defeat Procyon and enter the next room where we are ambushed by a katana-wielding Cyberman, Hunter. I'd like to make a joke about how bad the names are in this game, but as a game based in America from a company based out of Japan, they're actually pretty spot on. Hunter reveals that we, Diaz, are in fact a hybrid and a high-ranking executive of this facility, as well as the liaison between the overworld hybrids and the underworld hybrids. The man Diaz shot, Johnny, was a clone hybrid of a Secret Service agent who was to be substituted amongst the president's inner circle, but by Diaz killing him, it threw a wrench into the whole plan to swap out the president, as they needed the entire Secret Service to be hybrids for this to work. We also find out that Kevin, aka Mr. Hot Dog Watcher, is the president's aide, and as a backup plan, he will kidnap the president and swap him with a hybrid clone himself. Once this is completed, the hybrids will have total control over the United States of America and thus the world. Jerry is then left to decide Diaz's fate and decides to throw him into this toilet tube where he will be flushed to the second area of this game, the laboratory of the mad Dr. Bros. Dr. Bros is honestly one of, if not my favorite character due to a mix of his theme song, goofy animations, and his crazy clown trousers. Unfortunately, the cutscenes begin to lose their luster because there's actually no voice acting in them except for the very beginning and very end of the game. I would have loved to hear a fully voice-acted Hybrid Heaven, just so I could hear what characters like Bros sounded like, but I guess it wasn't in the budget. Bros wants to run some tests with us, and the first one is a test of speed, because this thing exists, and we need to run from it. I absolutely love this part. Instantly, we are thrown into a survival situation where this giant bioweapon, of whom I've named Biorex, chases you. You can't do any damage to it, but the good news is, if it does catch you, you're only going to take about 20 points of damage, and you're safe in any area it can't fit in. After a long chase through the level, we are cinematically sprinting across a bridge being chased by the Biorex, and we narrowly escape into an alcove, but gasp! We are trapped and the Biorex is hungry. However, an unseen savior breaks open an air duct and we crawl into safety. Holy Toledo! Turns out this little guy is a gargantuan. Once again, names don't really fit, do they? The gargantuan reveals to you that you are not you, but in fact you are the guy who you shot disguised as the other guy you aren't, as the man you shot is a clone of you who you are not but are at the same time. I could have made that a lot easier on you guys. Johnny Slater, the man you killed at the beginning of the game, was your clone, and the gargantuans were telepathically telling you to kill said clone. Also, Diaz, the hybrid executive liaison, is another person entirely, and you're actually the human Johnny Slater who has had his mind wiped and some sort of alien technology attached to your skin to make you look like Diaz. Throw everything you think you know about birds out the window because we're playing Hybrid Heaven. The Gargantuans are a peaceful race who travel the galaxy in search of samples. Typically, when they travel, they put themselves in cryostasis. However, on the layover to Earth, one of the Gargantuans named the Master became traitorous and broke the rules of not interfering with planets' ecosystems or politics. He kept the Gargantuans in cryosleep for many decades while he used the ship's super complex facility to create human clones to lead a full invasion of Earth. We are inside said complex, and seeing as Gargantuans are absolute pacifists, it is now up to us to stop the Master and stop the alien invasion from creating a hybrid heaven. The title, ladies and gentlemen, there it is! So now that you know the premise of the game, bonkers, right? And I am so here for it. And you know what's better? It gets crazier. So get comfy, baby. The Gargantuans save you and restore your memory and body, but just as this is happening, Jerry and his goon squad show up and trash the place, taking the Gargantuans and the real Diaz, whose body was in a tube next to Johnny. We managed to get out of the burning lab and arrive in the next area of the game, the clone storage facility. It is here. In this area, I start to notice something I really didn't like about this game. In fact, it's probably the biggest gripe I have. The areas all feel exactly the same. I know. We're in a giant alien super complex. Of course it's gonna look the same. And in all fairness, it does look different. The lighting effects are different shades and some of the textures are changed, but I feel like they could have done so much more to make the areas look different. In the clone storage facility, we find the clones of all the high-ranking officials of the US government that have been already swapped by the Master and his minions. It's also here that we meet Kevin. We get into an elevator and ride down to the lower levels with him. He reveals that he is a superior version of his human self, and his pride does not allow him to use the word clone. Kevin has already succeeded in swapping the president and is now on his way to dispose of him. He exits the elevator, leaving his men in black to take out Johnny, and we are greeted with this hilarious shuffling scene, which goes on for a bit too long before we enter combat. I would just like to say, Men in Black is the worst Will Smith movie I've ever seen. Sorry, wrong script. Men in Black are the worst enemy in hybrid heaven. If you stray too far away from them, they just whip out a gun and shoot you. You can sidestep this, but it's not always reliable, so most of the time I just have to take hits until I'm charged up and going for a combo. Eventually, we find Kevin sending the captured president down to a floor below. We make our way through the facility as Kevin heckles us from the intercoms, appears menacingly down hallways, and threatens our girlfriend. Once we catch up to him in his office, he shows us his true form. I just want to take a moment to say the hybrids and bioweapon designs in this game are so good. Each one is so varied and has their own combat style that accompanies them in battle. It just makes you want to sing about it. I want to be the best there ever was, to beat all the rest, yeah, that's my cause. Meatball, Silly String, Bacon, Snooty, Barnabas, Sheep Guy, Lava Rat, Bugby, Raiden, Frogman, Metalhead, Glitchy, Men in Black, Mr. X, Venus Trap, Jerry. His name's Jerry. The Super Kevin boss fight introduces enemy combos, so if you weren't scared before, you should be now. He can pull 2-hit combos out which can rock your health, and he also has some super sick throws that I'm pretty sure are unbreakable and also multi-hits. This fight was definitely a step up from the first boss, as Super Kevin feels like an absolute threat. His attack patterns are varied enough that rather than sticking to 1 or 2 moves, he actually adapts to the situation, throwing punches, kicks, and sick judo throws. But once Super Kevin is defeated, we find the president who is already in the middle of having his memory wiped. Luckily, our Gargantuan friends are trying to reverse the memory eraser, and we manage to save Mr. President in the nick of time. We are then introduced to President Weller, and are informed that Kevin has already succeeded in swapping the clone of the president, so we have to hurry up and get back the ship's navigator, a super AI, to start the ship's engine so the ship can take off, thus collapsing the complex beneath, thus destroying all the Master's facilities and ruining his plans. The generic themes of Hybrid Heaven are clear as day. Hope being found in the darkest of times, or what does it mean to be human? As cliche as it is, I think Konami did a great job of taking that North American cinematic Hollywood feel for a sci-fi action film and pumping as much of it as they could into Hybrid Heaven. Leaving the hideout, we arrive in the weapons factory, which is sick because they got robots. These guys look straight out of a sci-fi pulp comic book, and it's great, but they take ages to beat. It's also here I find that the mini-map stops being useful. You get to a point where there is so much going on with the rooms in overlap that the map basically is unreadable. The good news is the areas in the game are mostly just long halls with connecting rooms that have encounters in them. So I guess that kind of speaks to the level design itself, for better or for worse. The main objective for the weapons factory is to run around getting key codes and unlocking doors to lower floors. I started to get tired of this gameplay loop until I got to the bridge area where you have to avoid robots. There is a unique boss here that doesn't involve hand-to-hand combat, but rather using your diffuser. It's a lot of manual dodging and avoiding patterns, but my god does it feel so good fighting something out of combat. A little rough around the edges, but dare I say this feels like the most Metal Gear Solid this game can get. This level also introduces the only time we really use the crawl mechanic for anything other than getting under a gate. You use these conveyor belts to move you to other areas, but even then, they move you in one direction and the crawl isn't really utilized to its full potential. Konami put this mechanic in their game, animated it, made it feel good, and didn't really do anything with it. If you're going to make an answer to your sister branch's game, then at least steal some mechanics from said game. Oh, I'm no game designer, but maybe you could add some like skulking around in vents, dropping down on enemies, getting them with like a one-hit kill. I don't know, anything, because at this point, I'm not really sure why they put the crouch mechanic in. It just seems redundant. Eventually, Johnny enters a room where he overhears the real Diaz extorting this gargantuan, and he is pissed. Apparently, Johnny pretending to be him and causing the whole plan to go ass over tea kettle has dishonored Diaz, and he now seeks revenge. As Diaz leaves, we speak to the gargantuan, and in his last dying breaths, he says to us,
You'll never make a video as good as Quest 64 again.
What the f? We get to the lowest area of the complex, but I'd like to take a moment to point out something that I feel you might be feeling as well. Hybrid Heaven has this fantastic, pulpy, sci-fi story, but my god, the gameplay loop is not its strongest point. We enter a new area, run around fighting, finding key codes, and blowing up colored seals. The odd time we get something to break up the pacing is few and far between, and I think this is where most people's criticism lies. It's not that I think Hybrid Heaven is bad or boring. It 100% has so much to love, but the closer you get to the end, the more rushed it starts feeling. The craziest part is once we get into the lowest part of the lowest area where the navigator resides, it's just a gameplay loop of battle, lower barrier, battle, lower barrier, battle, lower barrier, etc. and etc. Except you do it 3 times in a row, and then you get a boss fight, which is 4 fights in a row. Admittedly, these bosses are cool. It's 3 elemental dragon hybrids and a whoa! Each elemental dragon is weak to their opposite element, which makes for some cool usage of your weapons. But the final big-headed boss doesn't seem to be weak to anything and just turns invisible, which is a cool idea, but I feel it doesn't really add anything to the fight because rather than turning invisible, it just flashes in and out of existence. After defeating the 4 guardians, we save the navigator, who funny enough looks like Cheese Whiz, and just like Cheese Whiz, I absorb him on sight. There's also this elevator puzzle here where you have to move back and forth between 3 different levels, destroying the correct sequence of seals in order to progress, and while this sounds like the same as the other puzzles, it is, but you had to mentally map which gates were being lowered and which floor to go to, making it feel like it was something straight out of Chip's challenge. We find this level's key code room with 2 Biorexes standing beneath us. Surely nothing bad will come of this. We then make our way through the bioweapon factory and stumble upon a panicking Dr. Bros. Currently, because we took the navigator, the complex is falling into chaos and the Goon Squad is trying their hardest to keep everything from being destroyed. We confront Dr. Bros, but instead of listening to the hologram Jerry, who is telling Bros to capture Johnny, the good doctor takes the opportunity to further his experiments and leads Johnny to a trap. I do think it's important that we bring up the subtle tones that hybrids have human emotions that plays into the story. By ignoring his superiors, Bros is hinting that hybrids, who are supposed to follow command without question and do everything in their power for the will of the master, are able to give in to their own emotions. And I absolutely love this because throughout the story, you begin to see the cracks and flaws that the hybrids have and that these superior beings are no better than humans. I just think it's good storytelling. With Dr. Bross's trap sprung, we fall into a pit against the 2 Biorexes we saw previously. And honestly, I think this is my favorite fight in the game, which is worth noting that it is not a combat encounter. As Bross reveals his plans and lets the Biorexes out, one of them starts spewing these fireballs that ignite columns of fire. Instantly, I knew what must be done. Lead one of the Rexes into the fire, killing it. Then, once this is done, we have to get the other one to ram into this very obvious door, thus breaking it and leading to our escape. Nice. We fell in. We escaped. Oh, I guess he's coming with us. No, I think we died. Surviving the Biorex explosion, we finally meet up with Bross and engage in fisticuffs. I'm actually really disappointed that Bross didn't take some sort of Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde potion and became some sort of grotesque monstrosity since, you know, he's a doctor. That's what doctors do when they fight. Really, Dr. Bross is just your standard fight, except that he uses items to power himself up. This does allow for an interesting back and forth as we are debuffing him while he buffs himself, creating a dynamic to the fight. We then kick the good doctor into submission and return to the Gargantuan hideout. However, much to our surprise, no one is here except for this mysterious woman. She claims to be Anna Moody, a nondescript worker at the White House who was captured, but the Gargantuans had saved her. Until recently, she was with President Weller and the Gargantuans when the Men in Black came in and took everybody except for her. A suspicious story, but one I believe. God damn it. Turns out Anna is a high-ranking hybrid who was working with Diaz. Anna protests against hurting Johnny as she does not feel comfortable with killing him, and Diaz responds that she is probably feeling that way due to the fact that she was hybridized as a nurturer since she is the parent figure to all clones made by the Master. This is yet another instance of a hybrid showing human emotion and ambition. Diaz is blinded by fury and obsession. Anna is feeling empathy for Johnny. Once again, something they should not feel, especially towards humans. I also think Hybrid Heaven really would have benefited being fully voice acted. Some of these scenes would go much further with the emotional turmoil that's being conveyed only through text. We then arrive in the room where Diaz will execute Johnny with a flare shot, but before he can pull the trigger and ignite our hero, the complex begins to collapse and Johnny escapes, leaving Diaz caught in the fires of chaos, vowing to get his revenge. I just really think this is a great shot. I really like it. Then we get back to the clone storage facility, except this time, it's on fire. We backtrack until we get to this awesome area with water, and for the first time, I actually feel like there is some variety here. But this is short-lived as we meet with the All-Mother Anna, who has become overtaken by grief as the complex's destruction is killing all of the clone babbies. As Anna flees, we make our way through the gauntlet of robots, bioweapons, and this insanely hard mini-boss. Bro has like 10 hit combos and it almost killed me like 3 times. Eventually meeting up with Anna and Jerry, who are currently in a bit of an argument. Anna is upset that the complex is collapsing and that the Master and Hunter are just letting it happen, voicing that she thinks they merely see her and other hybrids as expendable. Jerry, on the other hand, is trying to figure out how Anna can even feel this way, as hybrids are not made to question. He leaves us and Hunter appears via hologram, revealing that the complex is not only collapsing because we took the navigator, but because they initiated the ship's thrusters and they are now heading for the surface, thus sacrificing all lower facilities. With this truth revealed, in anger, Anna shuts off the transmission and you two run out of the exploding clone facility, but unfortunately, Anna does not make it. The final act of this game takes place on the top of the complex, and this level is mainly a few fights before eavesdropping on Jerry, who is desperately pleading with Hunter to let him go above ground, once again reiterating the fact that hybrids have feelings and wants. Jerry is obsessed with seeing the above ground, Anna cared for the entire hybrid race, Bross wanted to further his scientific research, and Diaz hates you. But Hunter believes that any hybrid not willing to put the Master's cause above all else are failures. He bargains with Jerry, telling him he's allowed to go above ground if he gets the navigator back, and Jerry leaves to lay an ambush for Johnny. We make our way to the top plate, and this level took so long because all it is fight, keycode, like 10 times. Like, the level itself isn't that long, but oh god. It has been halls, walls, and battles for the past 4 hours, and I have gotten to the point where my patience is growing so thin because battles are just shuffling around to max power, unleashing combos on an enemy who does negligible amounts of damage, of which can be healed anyway by the plethora of curatives I have. Don't get me wrong, I love the way combat is in this game. I just think it needs a faster pace to it. Reward players with more damage for getting button combos right or anything to speed up combat. It just needed, just a little tiny bit more in development, which is kind of funny because this aspect of the game is what Konami spent the most time in development on. We meet with Jerry and, of course, enter combat again. On the topmost plate of the complex, just underneath the gargantuan spaceship, which, to be fair, is a really cool setting. Jerry's fight is pretty average, but he says this every time he attacks you. And it make me laugh. We defeat Jerry and enter the spaceship, instantly meeting with Hunter, who has our gargantuan friends and President Weller held hostage. We also get our first glimpse at the Master. So is he just gonna look like one of the normal gargantuan? Oh, he is evil. Look at those eyes. Look at those two plump evil olives. Yuck. The Master reveals that it was his plan all along to bring you here, and that he's smarter than you. Yada yada yada, evil monologue, boom, Hunter fight. Remember when I said to save your guns? This is the reason you save them. In absolute shock, the Master returns in a fit of rage, blasting Johnny against a wall with his telekinetic energy, and right as he's about to finish Johnny off, President Weller tackles that little green bugger. Weller is then flung into a hole where he hangs on for dear life as Johnny and the Master engage in hand-to-mind combat. The Master fight is a breath of fresh air. He's not hard per se, but you do have to have your movement down packed as he sends energy balls at you, of which you need to sidestep or take a bunch of damage. But if you close in too fast to him, he'll use this psi wave that shoots you across the room. The way I handled this is I took out my gun and shot him. This scared him and he ran away. But you know I chased that coward down and put him in a neck lock. We defeat the Master, save President Weller, and return the Navigator to the Gargantuans. They let us know that they can leave our planet now without causing any more harm, but that we need to get out of the ship ASAP because it's going to fill with energy that's dangerous for humans. However, upon leaving, the Master reappears. Now, a while back, the Gargantuans mentioned that as pacifists, they don't really know how a member of their race was able to turn evil, and that was actually foreshadowing to this moment. You see, the Master isn't a Gargantuan, but rather a planet-devouring space parasite named Migoa. Migoa's goal is to consume all life on the planet. So he reveals his true form and of course, Johnny gotta deal with it. Migoa is probably the hardest fight in the game. No matter what end you smack, he will always hit you with a counterattack. Ion breath from the head and a powerful tail whip from the back. I found attacking him from the side was the most effective so long as I moved alongside him as he turned. But wait, there's more. After defeating Migoa's true form, he has a second form, which is the weird 10-hit combo mini-boss from before. I'm not actually sure if this is supposed to mean that we fought Migoa before randomly, or just it's the form he's taken, but either way, why decide to add another form after 5 fights in a row? I'll never know, because I didn't develop the game. We finish off Migoa's second form and head to the escape elevator with the president, but are ambushed by none other than Diaz. We tackle him off the elevator and land on the ground and...
Come on.
I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I was tired. I was hungry. I was ready to be done this game. 6 fights in a row, that's a bit much. But it was so worth it just to hear Diaz say, "Come on!" like he was straight out of Home Improvement. The final fight against Diaz would have been pretty epic if I didn't pop a speed booster and was able to avoid every attack he threw at me. I bullied this man so god damn much. Throw a kick, missed me. Try to grab, nuh-uh, he never stood a chance. Diaz, more like Cameron Diaz. The only thing that sucked about this fight is he would just keep healing himself. This added unnecessary fluff and really only proved to prolong the inevitable. It might have been better to put a time limit on this battle since the ship is taking off and everything's exploding, and because the fight actually took me 15 minutes, which I think is ridiculous, but we persevere. As Diaz fades, so too does our hope of ever getting out of here. Unless President Weller comes back for us and together you barely escape the launching ship. Crash! Boom! No, I'm just kidding. The game ends with Weller and Johnny having a heart-to-heart, the president heading to the peace treaty to take down his clone, and Johnny going to see Holly in DC. After 10 hours, we finally get some more voice acting.
Where to?
Washington, D.C.
Oh, that's pretty far to go, ain't it?
I'm in a hurry. This way's faster than getting on a plane.
Leave it to me, man. But today's Christmas Eve. It ain't Halloween, you know.
I guess I do need to make a stop at a clothing store along the way.
I thought you were in a hurry.
That was voice acting for sure, I think. On the taxi telly, Weller is shown clobbering the fake president while giving a thumbs up to the camera. Then Hybrid Heaven closes with a shot of Johnny and Holly reuniting under the Christmas tree.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Wait, is this a Christmas game? Is this my Christmas video? Yeah. It is. If action platforming was the focus, this game could have been a great answer to Metal Gear Solid, provided they fixed up some of the level design, added more weapons other than the diffuser, and made a reason for the crawl mechanic to exist. If it was just a 3D fighter, provided they had some more in-depth mechanics, it would have been a great fighting game on the 64, right up there with Clay Fighters or Killer Instinct. As for their RPG mechanics, I really don't think they had much of a hindrance on the game, but definitely needed some more polish, making Hybrid Heaven a jack of all trades but master of none. No system really complemented one another. And what's even more of a bummer is in the beta footage, you can actually see Johnny using a gun, characters that just aren't in the game, and areas that look super detailed. I actually couldn't find any information on if this game had cut content, but by the looks of it, Hybrid Heaven was going to be a completely different game. But hey, at least we had a fun game that tried a bunch of unique things and had a great story to boot. And maybe someday we'll get a Hybrid Heaven 2 that will be everything Konami Osaka wanted it to be and be a great contender against the now dead Metal Gear Solid franchise. Thanks, Konami. So until next time, Merry Christmas.
It's April.
Shut up. Hey, thanks for watching. Announcement! I've started a Patreon. If you really want to help support this channel and gain access to our Discord, be credited in future videos, and perhaps more, you can sign up with the link in the description for as low as
$3 Canadian a month.
Hope to see you there. My little greedy goblins. Go for a second one.